Boys and girls, get loose, grab your juice. It's Casual Samuel. Let's talk hoops. And today we are going through and breaking down the teams with the most pressure entering the 2024 NBA season. Dude, we're less than a week away at the time of recording from NBA basketball returning. I can't wait. I hope you can't wait as well. Kind of the structure of how we're formatting this video today. We have an honorable mention, which we haven't done in the past, but then also ranking 1 through 5, 5 being the team with the least pressure, 1 being the team with the most pressure. Honorable mention, I try to keep it somewhat short, pretty much 3 teams that were kind of on that fray. One of the teams you could argue you could replace with that 5 spot, but getting straight into it, boys and girls, first honorable mention, probably the team out of the 3 with the least amount of pressure. I have the Los Angeles Lakers in that first spot. First thing in the notes I have for them is LeBron signing these 1-year deals. Pretty much with him doing these 1+1 year deals. Anytime you have King James on your squad, there's going to be pressure that follows you. It's going to be kind of like a shadow. Year in, year out, anytime LeBron's on that squad, there's going to be title expectations, and whether it's Cleveland, Miami, LA, the expectations and pressure will follow. They also have the most national games I have here at 39 games. I know I've touched on that in a few of my other short form style content. And I think that does, play a factor in the sense of more eyes. I think in this case, more pressure again. With everyone watching you Tuesdays, Thursdays. I mean, they have a ton of, even looking here, NBA TV games, which was thrown in the mix to get that 39. I just think when you have a lot of eyes, whole nation watching you, there's pressure there. Back-to-back seasons of Nuggets dogging them, I think that also plays a factor. When you get swept 2 years ago and then last year you get gentlemen swept, we'll just kind of keep it nice there. I think that plays a factor. I mean, Denver's been just dogging them the past 2 years now. I mean, I think the Lakers had their stomp in the bubble where they kind of cemented their presence against Denver. But outside of that, I mean, it's kind of been the Jokic and Murray show. It's kind of since then that they've kind of been running through them. Last year, thing here for the Lakers, I have team escapes, top 5 pressure due to new JJ hiring plus non-championship caliber roster. Pretty much that being, I don't think anyone's expecting this team really to make noise in the sense, I mean, Rob Pelinka did nothing in the offseason, like literally whatsoever, other than connect and then obviously their 56 pick, Bronny James. Outside of that, no roster moves. I mean, D'Lo's back. They really did nothing. And I think the fact that JJ is the new head coach, I think that alleviates and kind of almost as like a Band-Aid / kind of cop-out if they just get kind of bounced in the first round. Next up, though, in the honorable mention, I have the New York Knicks. First thing here, New York Knicks fans are crazy. Bing bong. Kind of similar to whenever LeBron's jumping in potentially team to team or whatever team he's on, pressure follows. There's constant pressure in the Big Apple, MSG. They are expecting so much out of this organization and team. So any year in, year out, there's going to be expectations. And I think with that too, even more so, Mikal Bridges, Cat, they re-signed OG, and Jalen Brunson took that fat pay cut. Again, I think just more even fuel to the fire as to pressure being there in New York. They were able, though, to take it to 7 in the semis with a busted roster. I mean, Brunson, his ankle and foot was destroyed. Josh Hart had playing with like half a rib, so clearly Julius Randle was out. So for them to go that far in the playoffs, kind of exceed expectation, I think it also ties in now, hey, if we do have a healthy roster, even with Tommy T playing these guys, their knees into the ground 47 minutes a night, I think that plays a factor. Last thing, though, here for them really quick. Ultimately, new roster will serve as quote-unquote Band-Aid to cover any potential postseason disappointment. So quickly kind of going through that. I mean, if they get to the postseason and it's like first or second round, we'll just say second round, and they do get bounced by, let's say, probably like a Philly, I would imagine they'd match up with if teams stay relatively healthy. I think because they have such a new roster that would alleviate any sort of real direction and kind of angst people could have because, first year, just getting Cat and and Mikal into the system. I think next year, though, is when they could creep into that top 5 pressure for sure, because they have a year in the books. But the final spot for the honorable mention, I have the Denver Nuggets. First thing here in the notes, very close to making it into the top 5. You could swap this team out with who I have as number 5, and I wouldn't be mad at it. And I think majority of NBA fans would agree. Front office is asleep at the wheel. Bruce Brown, KCP, they gave Michael Porter Jr. a max contract, which maybe at the time it seemed somewhat decent. I think hopefully editor Sam can pull it up whenever they gave him that contract. I want to say it was like, was it not the summer that they got, that they won it all? Or was it the year before? Either way, at the time of giving it, I don't think there was really like a ton of backlash, but now as the years gone on, I think people are looking at that contract is a little bit ugly. Next thing in the notes, blowing a 20-point lead in a Game 7 where in the third quarter you had a 96.8% chance to win. Little questionable, right? I mean, Jamal Murray's shot has still not been found even throughout the Olympics, into the preseason still. Jokic was, still Jokic, but then I think even that year you felt the losses that the front office has dealt with them. So it's going to be a lot of relying on Christian Brown and Strother potentially, and kind of tying that in right away. Just gave Murray $1 billion. He's playing like balls is my exact notes here. I don't know, man. They gave him a fat contract extension. It was expected. I would be surprised if they didn't give him that extension, but now I think there's a lot in the fact to try and back it up in the sense of, dude, are you going to be worth this multi-$100 million contract? We will see if that shot comes back. I would think it does. Last year on player option for Aaron Gordon, we'll probably get a bag. Kind of ties into the front office is asleep. Dude, I'm telling you right now, if they let Bruce Brown, KCP, and then Aaron Gordon go, I think there's going to be some flames and fire in Denver, even if it's like middle of winter next year, if they don't bring him back. I don't think they'll let him slip, but if they do, a lot of eyes on this front office to try and figure out what they're doing. And then final note here for the Nuggets, you could make an argument that they could be swapping number 5 on this list. I wouldn't be mad. Touched on it before. I think with this next team that I get into, you really could swap just based on the narratives. I think a lot of this is like somewhat narrative based plus expectations going into this season. That's kind of how I looked at it, at least. With that though, we'll just go into number 5 that I'm kind of teasing. I have the Philadelphia 76ers to set the tone for this entire team, organization, etc. Joel Embiid is the only MVP to never make the conference finals. I had to double check this. I actually, because I couldn't believe it. That I don't know why I thought in my brain that he's gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals, but he never has. He's never sniffed the conference finals. I think their best shot was that series against Toronto with Kawhi Leonard hitting the rim 18 times in the corner, and then it falls through in that Game 7. Outside of that, they've never, I don't know why I thought he was in that conference finals. He's not, though. Like New York fans, Philly fans are wild. I mean, if you're remotely tied into sports, whether it's even the Eagles, whatever, I don't really follow baseball or NHL, but Philly fans are crazy. So similar to New York fans, year in, year out, the expectations are extremely high. Real possibility, 76ers face New York in the semis and lose in the second round because potentially I view them as a 3 seed. I view New York as a 2 seed. In that second round, it's 3 versus 2. I think there's a real possibility that Philly loses in probably like 6 or 7 to New York in the second round. And that's where I think, again, things kind of get ugly. How will Nick nurse that knee?
Oh, my God, bro.
Oh, the main thing there is, it's already got reported, Joel is probably not playing back-to-backs. I think the exact report was like for the rest of his career, but I think certainly for this season, they're not even expecting him to play back-to-backs whatsoever. So we'll see how they handle that. The bit old Kawhi treatment for sure, how they're handling his knee and leg situation now, injury hole fiasco. Last year was the first time since 2018 PG played more than 60 games. Also at the time of recording this, about 36 hours ago, Paul George went down with that hyperextension against, I think it was Atlanta in the preseason. Ugly looking injury. So far reports though seem to be that it's not nearly as severe as people I think thought with the freeze frame of his leg looking like a Burger King like chicken fry. But I will see because I've done the time of being a Clippers fan and seeing the injury report, false injury timelines with Paul George and Kawhi for about 5 years now. So we'll see what the actual severity is because I think as of now it's looking like a month is maybe the worst case scenario, but we'll see. And that's clearly going to affect how far in the run they make in just the regular season and postseason. Last year was first time. O'Reilly went over to PG. Similar again to New York, new roster could bail them out of criticism. Again, similar to the Knicks, I think this roster is still, they can say it's new with Paul George coming into the organization. Same with Caleb Martin. Not as new, I would argue, as New York, but I mean, I could see that scapegoat. We'll just get the year in. Get the chemistry brewing, and then next year again. Next year for where they'd be at, it's probably just going to keep getting higher until for the next 2 years. I would imagine for this organization. But I think a lot of pressure on Philly to deliver this year. Next up, though, I have the Dallas Mavericks at 4. First thing to note, always pressure when you played in June. When you play in June, you're just kind of automatically, I think, kind of scratched in to have pressure when entering the NBA season just because you did it last year. What are you going to do this year? It's kind of just like a gimme now type sport. Similar, I would say, to the NFL. It doesn't matter what you did last year. What are you doing for me now? Last year on Kyrie deal, player option in 25-26. I think he's found a home there. I think Dallas likes his company. I don't think they're trying to kick him out the door unless he has like a weirdly just horrific season this year, which I don't predict. I would imagine that they're going to probably extend him, especially with what they just did, again, back in June. PJ and Gafford will be sniffing extensions, plus Dante Exum free agent next year. I think they'll be smarter than like a Denver front office. I think they're going to pay PJ. I think they're going to pay Daniel Gafford. It'll be interesting what they do with Dante, just with the new second apron. I could see him being a guy that slips through the cracks if he does again perform. He's injured now, but if he does perform well, I could see him unfortunately slipping through and going to a different kind of playoff type team, maybe like a Houston Rockets type that are feeling like they're a bench piece missing here or there. Playoff run wasn't fluke, but West is insane. I would say there is a team on this list that did have, you could argue, a fluke run later down on the list, but theirs was not a fluke run. Outside of Kawhi in that first round, which I don't think the Clippers are going to win that series to begin with either way, even if Kawhi was healthy, to be honest. Outside of that, I mean, they played pretty much healthy rosters throughout their entire run. I mean, even into the finals, obviously Porzingis was dealing with his thing, but their run was not a fluke. So, I mean, you got to run that back and prove it. And again, the West got so competitive. It was competitive last year. It felt like it got even more competitive somehow this year. Next thing here, how will Clay fit? Plus, was losing Derrick Jones Jr. secretly a big mistake? So far in preseason, again, it's preseason, so we're not taking it with the biggest grain of salt, but I think he's like 3 of 18 in the 2 games. Hopefully I'll fact check there, but I know against the Clippers, he went 0 of 9 when I watched that preseason game, and I think the game before, which was his first, he went 3 of 9. So hopefully he kind of finds his groove. Plus, I think losing Derrick Jones Jr., losing your point of attack defender, or at least one of them, is going to affect you, especially clearly defensively. PJ Washington, I think, now steps into that main defensive role, which is he's going to fit that, I think, incredibly, to be honest. But we'll see how that affects them. And then I think they've reached this point in Luka's career with how great he is, plus this kind of gray time zone in his contract where if they're not having deep playoff runs, the trade rumors, they're going to swirl. He has a player option after next season. They've already tried to swirl it last year. And then I think it quieted a lot of it with the success they had this entire, especially from like April on, clearly. I think it quieted it down. But again, now he's in this weird gray area where I think as time goes on, more and more trade rumors are going to swirl because that's just how the NBA is. I think there'll be a lot of smoke. I don't think there's a real fire there. Either way, I have them at number 4 for having the most pressure next season. At number 3, though, I have the Boston Celtics. First thing, again, playing in June equals pressure automatically next season, especially if you win in June. A lot more pressure, right? I mean, you got to deliver, prove that what you did last year wasn't a fluke, and even just tying it in right away, next thing in the notes, they got to prove it wasn't a fluke. I mean, injuries that they went up against, clearly they had their own with Kristaps in that first round, but I mean, Jimmy Butler was out, Jaime was out, Terry Rozier was out, Jarrett Allen was out, Donovan Mitchell was out, and then finally here, Tyrese Haliburton, he had the hamstring thing, and I think he was out as well, if I remember right. But the entire kind of playoff run they had, a lot of the stars they were going against weren't 100% or were just out in general. So I think a lot of eyes and a big microscope is on Boston to prove that, hey, we just didn't kind of just fall and have the easiest run to the NBA Finals potentially in history. So we'll see if they can back that up. Next thing, they won it all, but not the way NBA fans wanted, kind of tying that into the fact of how Tatum played. I mean, he had 25 points per game, 42% from the field, and 28% from three was kind of his splits he had. So, again, it doesn't matter what me or just NBA fans in general, it doesn't matter what we think. Clearly, at the end of the day, they won it all. So, but I think there is that extra media outside noise as to, again, applying pressure of hey, Tatum kind of played kind of like ass. And then Jaylen Brown was the one that won Finals MVP. Tatum's supposed to be the face of this Boston Celtics team. He's got the $300 million contract. Again, doesn't matter what we think. At the end of the day, they still won it all. They still had 100 wins last year. They were insane. Can they back it up, though? And then final thing I have here for the Boston Celtics is kind of tying into even Tatum's contract is, and it's not, it sounds like an exaggeration similar to the Jamal Murray $1 billion contract. No, they literally nearly $1 billion is invested into their top 7 guys for the next 3 years.
Oh my God.
So I think there is that external pressure as well from that. I think that is real. I mean, when you have nearly $1 billion invested into your top 7, 8 guys for the next 2, 3, 4 years, the pressure's there. And especially with all the ownership stuff that they're kind of going through now, I don't think it'll play a big factor, but it's definitely there. The noise is real in that aspect for sure. At number 2, though, I have the Phoenix Suns. First thing I have the notes for them is sold their soul for that 2021 finals appearance. I mean, ever since then, man, it's right up next to with this. They've been 6-9 in the Phoenix KD playoff era with no Western Conference Finals appearance to show for it. I mean, ever since they played Milwaukee in that 2021 run, it's just been weird. It's been weird in Phoenix. They've made weird moves. And that's the thing, even last year, outside of Grayson Allen, nearly 100% healthy, and the Wolves clapped them in 4. I mean, I know if you're watching this, I'm sure you saw it. I think you're probably obsessed with basketball like myself. Dude, Anthony Edwards was walking all over them. I mean, his kind of role model guy was KD, and he was just shooting over him like it was nothing. I mean, they just walked Phoenix in 4. It was pretty embarrassing, especially when you have that big 3 in Beal, Book, and KD. It's a little bit suspect. Every day that sun rises in Phoenix, Beal trade looks more and more horrific. I know it's been probably beat to a pulp at this point, but I mean, no trade clause on his $50 million contract that I think he still has 2 years on is not looking good by any means. And especially, I've said it before in the watchability. I said it where I ranked them in the West in the last video. I think Beal should come off bench. Again, it's probably not going to happen. Coach Bud won't do that. But I think for their longevity of their success, he should be coming off the bench. Again, probably won't happen, but I think that would be their best route to, I think, postseason success that they haven't seen since that 2021 run. Fired Frank after 1 season, on to Bud now. That's 3 head coaches in 3 years now. So a little bit of stability issues, I would argue, in Phoenix going on that I don't know as though gets talked about enough. I mean, Monty Williams to then Frank to now we're on to Coach Bud. I think front office has got some stability issues. And tying in with that, Matt Ishbia is treating this organization like it's a NBA 2K franchise mode ever since he's come in. Ever since he's come in, first round picks have been like monopoly money to him. I mean, everything he gave away from the KD trade. I don't think they gave up a ton in the Beal trade, but I think that was just because of the no trade clause really was in their favor in a sense in Phoenix's eyes. But like they literally only have their 2031 pick for first round picks. It's literally in 2031. That's all they have right now. I'm sure, which I'll get into this last point, Suns next year will be wildly different, question mark. KD/Book gone. Yeah, you can maybe recoup a lot of that, especially if you trade Book. I don't know, like KD, I think you're looking at maybe 2 firsts. His trade value is insane. I'm not even trying to guess. But, I mean, you're going to get a little probably of it back in the first round aspect, but you're still in a garbage position if you're Phoenix, the way that Matt Ishbia just like treated those first round picks. But I do believe, again, tying in this last point, I do believe that this is the last we'll see of the KD and Book era. I think at best here they're the 4th seed, and that's at best. That's like because Minnesota in my eyes better, OKC is better, Dallas is better, and that's at best with them at 4 because I would still take Denver in a 7-game series over Phoenix, to be honest. Just with their postseason success that they've had recently, I just trust Jokic, Aaron Gordon. I don't know how much I trust Jamal Murray right now, but I trust their clutchness in a 7-game series way more than I do this Phoenix team. So with that, I think that's why they have the second most pressure, and you keep some eyes on Phoenix because it's probably going to get a little rowdy there in the desert land come probably like June, July on their front office front. At number 1, though, I have the Milwaukee Bucks as the team with the most pressure entering this 2024 season. First thing here I have is Cream City is in the thick of it.
What?
I don't even know where to start with this team, man. Since Giannis, you could make the argument this is the worst front office when it comes to drafting. Holy man. I mean, I got a link with it too. I'll include it in the description. I'll go over it with you guys right now, though. Since Giannis, 2013, let's go over some of the guys they've drafted just really quick. 2014, Jabari Parker. I mean, at the time, for the first couple of years, looked decent. I thought it was going to be Jabari and Giannis kind of running the show in Milwaukee, but we know how that turned out. 2015, Rashad Vaughn. They drafted Norman Powell, but he got sent to Toronto right away. So you'll notice a trend here. The guys, especially in like the second round that they trade away are the ones that also like are somewhat still in the league, like being impactful, which is funny and interesting to me. So that was 2015, 2016, Thon Maker. We knew how that turned out. Second round, they struck on Malcolm Brogdon, but now he's kind of bounced around the league. 2017, DJ Wilson. 2018, Dante DiVincenzo, but he's bounced around the league and he's an incredible role player now. They didn't stick with him. 2019, Kevin Porter Jr., he got like traded 3 or 4 times. He's on the Clippers now. But again, they're not sticking on to these guys. 2020, RJ Hampton, Jordan Nwora, he's on, I think, Indiana now. I don't know if he's getting any rotation minutes. 2021, Isaiah Todd. 2022, Marjon Beauchamp, which I think Bucks fans would even tell you has been highly disappointing. 2023, Chris Livingston. And then this year's draft, A.J. Johnson. Kind of a lot of hot ass there, if you ask me, when it comes to drafting, how their front office has handled that. So tying that in right away. So not like Milwaukee would pick the right guy anyways, but similar to Phoenix, they literally only have their 2031 first round pick. And then I'm not kidding. The only other pick they have is their 2031 second round pick. That's literally all they have in Milwaukee. So I don't know if their scouting department in the 414 is just scouting 6th, 7th graders in the AAU circuit right now. But when it comes to their asset kind of side of things for that organization, looking pretty stinky in Milwaukee. They're 10-13 in playoffs since 21 title, injury plagued. But what I think is funny, and this is more so aimed at I think Milwaukee Bucks fans, it's a fact. I mean, it's been injury plagued since then with Giannis going down against the Heat. Giannis last 6 games. Chris Middleton, obviously. What's funny, though, is I think I see living in Wisconsin, a lot of like those same Milwaukee fans kind of dogging on Kawhi, Joel Embiid, stuff like that for their health stuff. But then I think them wanting an asterisk or gray area when it comes to them and their postseason success that they just haven't had. So it's really interesting kind of dynamic, which I thought was worth bringing up. What I still don't understand, even here now in October with the season about to start, firing Adrian Griffin after going 30-13 to hire Doc Rivers. Yeah, that still blows my mind. I understand that 30-13 wasn't the prettiest, but hiring Doc Rivers? I don't know if any of you are watching the Starting Five Netflix documentary right now, but you know how many times where they've cut to stuff and it's Doc Rivers narrating kind of in the background when he was with ESPN, and I'm like, oh, I forgot dude was working on the sideline with ESPN in like December during like, or even November with the in-season tournament. So, real questionable hire there. I have attached here, which I'll include in the description, some doc stats. Like, he's failed to reach the conference finals since 2012 when he was a Celtics coach, despite 8 of 11 of those regular seasons having 50-plus wins. That's insane. Like, this man is literally, I don't know, he'll get the regular season success. He'll get you that, 49 to 53 wins. But it's second round city, baby. And I think that's where Milwaukee's headed, because next point I have here, so much pressure because of Boston, New York, Philly, and Indiana. They're not only better right now, but the setup for their future is so much better than Milwaukee. Like between like the draft picks that these other teams have, or just even the young talent they have right now. Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby. And Philly, more so on the front of, they still have a lot of their picks, but also like guys like Joel, PG, they're aging, but they at least still have like a ton of assets. That's, I think, the big difference there. And then the final thing, I think, to kind of wrap up everything with Milwaukee as to why I think they have so much pressure entering this season: no assets, plus mediocre coaching, plus aged and brittle roster, while having title aspirations equals immense pressure that will crack this organization and have Giannis slip out. I've touched on it before. I don't know. I think next season, I wouldn't say it's for sure that he just is out of this organization and he gets traded, because I think you're going to have to pry him from Milwaukee's 414 cold dead hands. But there's going to be a lot more noise, dude, especially if they're a first round exit. We'll just get that right out of the way. If they're a first round exit and they're relatively healthy, like maybe Chris is still out. Even if Chris is still out, I don't care who they're facing, they should still win that first round matchup, even as like the 4 seed or 5 seed. I think I had that projected as a 5 seed against Indiana. If they lose to Indiana in that first round, let's say, even with Chris Middleton out, dude, Giannis is going to be fuming, and I think he's going to have no problem telling media he'll want to win in general, whether it's in Milwaukee or not. He's already gone on the record saying that. So I think even a second round exit next year won't suffice. The only thing I think is if they somehow take it to like 6 or 7 against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe a different story, and it'll be more so extending that Dame, Giannis, Doc Rivers trio. Either way, though, I think there's a ton of pressure on Milwaukee, front office-wise, even just on the actual court, as to them proving that they should keep running this back year in and year out with how aged, especially Brooke, Chris Middleton's getting up there. We will see, though. But that's who I think has the most pressure entering this upcoming season. Do you agree? Who do you think has the most pressure entering these next 9 months of NBA basketball, which, again, we're less than a week away from? Like, thank God for that, dude. Outside of that, though, it's going to do it for today's video. If you're not subscribed, dude, I literally have a degree in casual takes. You're going to want to subscribe and hit that like button. But that's officially it for me today. I will see y'all in the next one.